all right, all right. Yo, 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 what it do, what it do? It's your boy Yola the Poet, and today I am here with Miss Leanne Linsky. She is a comedian and entrepreneur and founder of Plausible. We will definitely get into what that's about, but first and foremost, thank you so much, Ms. Leanne. We greatly appreciate you and welcome to YTP Entertainment. So please give us some enlightenment on what you do.
What I do? Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you, and we've already been having fun.
Yes.
What do I do? So I've had like an odd journey of getting here. Short version that we can dive into bits and pieces as you wish. But I started out majoring in business and working for a big company. Ended up taking some comedy classes way back in 2001 and thought, I'm going all in. So when I was laid off from a job a few years later, I packed up 2 suitcases, moved to New York City to pursue comedy full time, and then eventually moved to LA area. And then I decided, hey, I'm spending too much time on the highway. How do I how do I get some more time to work out my jokes? And started doing things online. And that was before COVID. Then COVID happened and everybody started doing things online. But I thought, although that's great and there's some existing technologies that make it happen, I need to now take it a step further so it's more customized for entertainment and for solo performers like comedians to get online and really connect with people internationally and at, kind of on a more level playing field and give them all the tools that they want. So I don't have to, they can have access and produce however they want and when they want and where they want easily and have the opportunity to earn money. So I ended up going back to school and getting my master's in innovation and entrepreneurship and launching my company and building a team and, bringing the vision to life. It's been a long time coming, but here I am. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, indeed. I'm happy for you. That is awesome. I'm loving the journey, no doubt. So what made you want to get into comedy?
Well, I so I grew up in a really funny family and I just thought I had to have a sense of humor in order to survive. So there was that. But when I was working for this large corporation, I was doing a lot of public speaking and training and things like that. So I was in front of people quite a bit and I thought, "Oh, how do I be a little bit more entertaining doing this?" And so I started by signing up for a comedy writing class. And I was living in Vegas at the time. So I took like a continuing ed class in comedy writing at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then a while later, one of my coworkers was like, hey, the Second City Training Center, they have a training center out here. And I was like, what? And, we're from Chicago, so we know what Second City is. And I was like, I didn't realize they had a training center out here. And so I took an improv class and I was instantly hooked. And so I took all the classes they offered. Then I took them all again and some of them a third time. And I was just totally immersed into it. And then on my vacation time, I would go to New York and take some classes at Upright Citizens Brigade, or I'd travel to LA on weekends and take classes at UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade in LA when they first opened before they had a stage there. They had a training center. So I was doing all these different things. And then that's how I got into it. It's because the urging of my coworkers and I wanted to do better at public speaking. And I instantly fell in love with it.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So one of the big questions that I always ask, and it's funny to me, everybody's answer is always something different. So when you go in front of a bunch of people now, do you still get those butterflies?
Yes, I do. They're different though, right? I do get them. And if I don't get them, I'm like, something's going to go wrong. But I consider it the respect I pay my audience.
Yes.
And that's how I view the nerves. But yeah, I still get them. I still have dreams about people going like, oh, and now Leanne. And I'm like, what? I haven't rehearsed. I haven't worked out those jokes yet, you know? So even when I don't have a show coming up or something, I have that. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, what was one of your what you would consider one of your worst, and how did you deal with it?
Oh, let's pick one. So one of the wildest things, I think one of my favorite epic failures in performing incidences. There's a couple, but one was when I was still living in Vegas and I was part of an improv group, right? Because that's what you do when you sign up for improv. You're like, we're gonna make a group and then we gotta do shows. And so we actually booked a paid gig.
Uh,
And this organization was gonna pay us, I don't know, a couple $100 to, and that was a lot of money, right?
yeah.
I don't know what they were thinking because we were terrible. And they were gonna pay us, I don't know, maybe it was $100. And we were going to show up and do an improv set in a parking lot of some casino or something, not a nice casino, you know, like one of the off strip casinos or something, in the parking lot for a group of like 100 people outside, right? And
Okay.
we get there and like, let's say we had a group of 6 that we were going to split this $100 with amongst 4 of them canceled. They didn't show up. And
Oh,
so there were 2 of us. And we were like, how do we improvise for like 30 minutes with just the 2 of us? We didn't know what we were doing. And
yeah.
we're like, do we cancel? We're like, no, we don't cancel. Like this, like they're expecting us. They plan this for this event. So we're there standing there like, do we go in? Do we go? We go in. It starts raining. Now it never rains in Vegas. It starts raining. It's an outdoor event. And
Oh,
now it's just the 2 of us. And they're yelling, we can't hear you. And someone tries to find a microphone and we, you know, improvising is different than stand-up comedy and we have to pass the mic back. It was the worst. I don't even remember what we did or how we got through it, but somehow we got through it. They're like, you're done. And we left and we were like, that was the worst possible scenario. And yet it was we were like, we're friends for life after this. We are like, we still keep in touch. We still talk about that. And we
oh.
had a few more instances that were just as terrible.
That is awesome. So, how did it make you feel afterwards?
How do we feel? We thought we were like the coolest people ever. Like we did it. We got through it. We got paid. And it was terrible, but we did it. It felt so good to know like, yeah, it was terrible, but we did it. And it was the same like uh I had booked another group. I think it was a totally different group, and I had booked us for a halftime show at a basketball game. Nobody wants to see improv comedy on the court at halftime. They're like, nobody was paying attention. My group was like, this is the dumbest gig we've ever got. And I'm like, there is no such thing as a stupid gig. Maybe, but we did it. And then, but in stand up, I mean, I've done shows for like one person in the audience. Like, if people are like, well, should we cancel? I'm like, this person came out of their way to see a show. Let's do a show. That's the only way you get better, too. Like, if you can perform for one person like you would for 50 or 100, why not? Like, to me, any opportunity to perform is an opportunity to get better.
That's
And you
very
never know who that one person is. I had a show that I was booked in New York at the Grizzly Pear, and it's right next to the Comedy Cellar. And so uh we were booked and like no one was showing up. And usually the guys who produce that show, they stand out and they bark. We call it barking, where you stand outside in front and you're like, hey, you like comedy? You want to come see a comedy show? And you like get some poor tourist to come in and buy a few drinks. And they're like, nobody's coming in tonight, you know, and it's always hit or miss. And they're like, maybe we just cancel it. And the girl who was gonna host it, was like, well, I'm not going to host it. I'm going to go do an open mic somewhere else. And someone else was like, well, I'm going to do a show. I'll go get these guys over at the bar. And finally, we got like one or two to come in. I said, I'm just going to start the show. And he's like, will you host it? I said, yeah. By the end of the show, the house was standing room only. And in the back of the room, I get off stage at the end of the night. A couple guys, they come up, give me a hug. You know who one of them was? Tracy Morgan.
That was awesome.
I was like, you never know who is gonna show up and who, you know, like it was like the coolest night. I had such fun and I was able to mess around with my set and do things that I didn't normally do because no one was there. I didn't care. It gave me a whole new sense of freedom. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. That is awesome. So tell us about what was one of your best.
Mm, I think um some of my best were, one of them was like one of my most funnest. I don't know if it's about my performance or not, but like some of my really fun experiences, like there was this one, it was just a great energy and vibe with the audience. And it was in Chicago, actually. I was there. I had booked myself in a few shows because I was traveling through Chicago and then back to Vegas and then back to New York. And it was at this one place where they would have, they wouldn't tell you the location until the day of, and they'd text everybody the location, and like just hundred some people would show up, and it would be like in someone's garage, you know?
Kind of like
And
a
I was
party.
like, I have no idea what to expect. You know, I'm just rolling up in a back alley somewhere into someone's garage, and the place was packed. It was just amazing. The crowd was so receptive and warm, and I felt like I had a really good set. But another time was when I did my one woman show,
Uh,
and I've been doing it for a year. Like I opened it in New York and I had a really, you know, it was a nice sized crowd, and but it was the first show. It's like, oh, I wish I would have, you know, and it went well, but I did a run and then I took it to DC, I took it to Delaware, and then I took it back to New York. So like a year later, I'm doing it again in New York, a different venue. But I had tweaked it and changed it, and it evolved from like a 25-minute show to a 55-minute show. And my last show that I did, I got a standing ovation. And it just, like, to me, that it's like, I've arrived, you know. And in that same show, it was in New York, right? It was at Theater Row, and a rat ran across the stage in the middle of the show.
oh my
So
goodness.
welcome to New York. I was like, did I really just see that? Yeah, I just saw that.
Oh my goodness, that is so crazy.
So, I mean, I don't know, like define best experience. That would be it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I know what it feels like to get a standing ovation. Oh my goodness. I was doing my one of my poems called On Bended Knee in Georgia, and we were at the Club Pisces in Stone Mountain. And OMG, I was doing the opening for Cool in the Game, Got Band, Mary Mary, Johnny Gill, and Rick James siblings, because this was like during the time when Rick James had passed away. And oh my goodness, the celebrities were supposed to be critiquing us. Instead of me getting critiqued, I got called over to the VIP section.
Wow. Very
Yeah.
cool.
And I got a standing ovation afterwards because at the end of my poem, I actually got on one knee because I had a girl that I had picked from the audience. And I got on one knee, and at the end of it, I said, "Would you be my wife?" And I was holding her hand, and everybody just went crazy. It was like standing ovation crazy. Some of the young ladies, the females, they were in tears. Like it was just so crazy, but it was awesome. And right after I got called into the VIP section.
That's a really great story. And you didn't end it with, and a rat ran across the stage during the show.
Well, the funny thing afterwards was when I got to the VIP section, sitting over there, and um, Charlie Wilson was like, "Man, how did you even get into poetry? So I explained how I got into poetry, and I asked him. I say, "Do you remember going to Chicago and going to 75th in Indiana at the Soul Vegetarian East restaurant?" And he was like, "Yeah, I do remember that. I remember going there." And he was like, "I was talking to this little boy. He was probably couldn't have been no more like 6 or 7 years old. And I spent practically all of my time with the young man. Like he was a great young man. I wonder what happened to him. I really hope that everything went well with him. We would teach him how to play the drums." And I was like, "Yeah, I remember all that stuff too." And he looked at me, he was like, "Huh?" I said, "Yeah, I'm that little boy." He's like, "What? No. Oh my goodness." He just went crazy.
Oh my gosh, that is such a great story. That's amazing. You blew his mind.
He's like, "Well, I get to see you again." He's like, "Oh my God, and you do a poetry now?" He's like, "Oh man, make sure you stick with this." Maybe he said, "You are really, really good at this. You need to stick with this."
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
It
And he
was
remembered all of that, and you're like, "Uh-huh, mhm."
It was
Wow.
too funny. That was too funny. I was just laughing at him, and he was like, "Man, I can't believe this." It was just too funny. And then I tried to go to the restroom. Here's the terror part. Tried to go to the restroom. That was one of the biggest mistakes I had made that night because the girls in the crowd was like grabbing and tugging on me, and they had to send two of their bodyguards out just so that I could go to the restroom and make it back to the VIP section.
Are you kidding me?
No, no, that
That's
was hilarious.
hilarious.
It reminded me of when Michael Jackson, when he said that one of the scariest things that could ever happen to an entertainer is going into a crowd. He said because you never know what to expect, and that got me.
That's that's like, you're like, "Oh, wow, I've made it," and you're like, "Oh, wow, I'm terrified." Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was in Georgia, and by the time I left there, I literally had to leave out in the back with the celebrities where nobody could see us. It was so crazy. And I had a friend with me, and he was like, "Man," he said, "I understand." He said, "There was no way you were going to make it home if you had left."
Oh, man. Do you have video of that?
No, I wish I did. That would have been awesome. But at the
Yeah.
time, I didn't even think about recording it or anything. It was
Wow.
it was a lot of fun because the
That
DJ
that
was with me.
that's a great, great story.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. What can I say? And sometimes, even now, when I go to different places, people are like, "I know you from somewhere." I'm like, "I don't know. I have no clue."
That's impressive. That's impressive. They're still recognizing you, and you're just like, "I don't know."
It's sometimes it's very intimidating because it's like you never know who's gonna come out of the woodworks or who's gonna act, erratic or anything. So I just like I don't know.
Right? Yeah, play it safe. I don't know.
Yes. Oh my goodness. When I was reading your profile, I'm loving the fact that you had all of these things going on. What made you start plausible, and what is plausible about?
Well, it had a lot to do of once I moved from New York to LA, because when I was in New York, I was there for about 9 years, and I ran an open mic for most of that, like over 7 years. And I I don't know, in New York there's just this vibe of, there was a community, there was a comedy community, and I had established really good friendships with other improvisers and other comedians and stuff after being there for so long. So when I moved to LA is a very different energy about it, because it's really spread out. I hadn't driven in years. I took the subway everywhere in New York. Why would I drive? It would be insane. But in LA, I was suddenly spending all this time on the 405, and it was just like, what has happened to my life, right? It's also very expensive, with gas and everything. And I was like, when I started doing some shows in LA, um, I just didn't get the same vibe or energy of like community and camaraderie. I was now the new person. I felt like I was starting all over again, but it was going to be even harder somehow.
Oh wow.
And like I did shows, and they'd pay people out, like their friends out, and then not me. It was just weird. Like I had these weird random experiences, and I'm like, what is happening right now? And I was like, how do I also, I drive an hour and a half, because it takes an hour and a half to get it 2 miles. And I drive somewhere, and it would just take forever. And then they'd be like, well, you have to bring people. And I'm like, I just moved here. Like, you knew this when you talked to me on the phone. And they're like, well, I can't put you on stage unless you bring people. I'm like, the bringer show thing. And I'm like, I just spent like 90 minutes in my car. Who do I randomly dialing people up on finding people on Facebook that might be in the area. But stuff like that. So I'm like, how do I bridge this gap? Like, how do I maybe not drive to everything, but still work out my jokes? So when I do book my shows, I'm just not driving all the time and putting up with this garbage. And so I was like, what about Skype? Let's do Skype. And people were like, Skype. And then life got lifey. And so I started doing podcasting, things like that. And then I started producing my own shows. And that was really helpful. But I'm like, man, I really miss people in New York. And and so then I started doing things on Zoom. And this was like in August of 2019 BC, before COVID. And so they were like, hey, this is really cool. Why aren't you charging us for this? Because for open mics, we often pay for our spots, $5 for 5 minutes or whatever.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm onto something if comedians are willing to pull out some cash. But then some other comedians were like, why would I do that? That's the dumbest thing. And then COVID happened. And everybody's like, oh, this is the greatest thing. And so everybody started doing it. But at this point, I had already been on it enough to know it was, it's really great for your general connection. It's great for business, obviously, and other things. But for entertainment, there's a few key things that I'm like, that we need as entertainers. And instead of cobbling a bunch of technologies together, why don't I build it all in one thing? And then I was like, how do I do that? I mean, I went to school for business initially, but that was a long time ago. And now all of a sudden, I'm 50 somehow during COVID. I was like, how did this happen? But I was like, maybe this is an opportunity to like go back to school. Like, what does that look like? And I found this program that was new, and it was like a 9-month accelerated master's program at University of California, Irvine. And I'm like, how can I make this work? Like, how can I get in there? And, I'm applying to scholarships. I'm applying to get in. I'm like, how do I make this work? Because if I can meet other people who know how to make things happen and to grow like a tech company, that's what I need to do. Because I'm not a software developer. I'm a non-technical founder, and I need to find some people who know tech. And so I got accepted. I got in somehow. I'm like, did you read my application? But somehow I got in, and then I went through this whole program during COVID, of all things. And I just went for it. And then I got accepted into incubators and accelerators and everything. And I eventually was able to hire a team, and we put all the pieces together and brought it to life. And so this is like basically what I wanted to do, is democratize comedy. Like, not everybody has the luxury of packing 2 suitcases and moving to New York, you
True.
know? I was in a place where I didn't have a significant other, I didn't have kids that I knew of, and I was like, "I'm gonna pack up and go," but how many people can really do that, you know? Um, or even go to LA, and so, I mean, that's a big leap. I mean, and there was so much I didn't know going into it. If someone had told me, maybe I wouldn't have done it, but I did. And and so I basically wanted to give the opportunity to people who don't live in the larger cities, people who live in different areas of the country or even in areas of the world where they don't have access to a comedy venue or even a coffee shop where they can go down the street and create their own mic or whatever it is, you know? And I'm finding that there's a lot of people like that. Since we launched Plausible, there's a lot of people who live all over and, you know, now comedians can produce their own shows. I don't audition people. They come on, they create their account, they have all the tools and they can put all their art out there and work it and grow a fan base and earn money. Like you don't have to have a minimum number of followers. That's the other thing. There's like all these barriers for people
Yeah.
and you have to have like this many listeners or followers or whatever. You just have one, you just need one person to buy a ticket and you make the majority of the money off that ticket. Done. Like like there's other opportunities where you know you can have a subscription and people pay $5 a month for all your content and now you're working your tail off creating content for $5 a month and it's like what are you doing right now? Like what are you doing? I can see all that same content on your social feed. What if you just perform, pay a ticket, charge a ticket price,
Yeah.
people will pay you for it, do a great show for an hour, and you walk away with the majority of the money.
Yes, indeed. That's so true. I totally agree with you on that. No doubt. No doubt. So
So,
I came up with the
yeah.
name.
Okay, so the name, total transparency here. I had started out, I'm like, I'm calling it online open mic. This is before people were doing anything with COVID. And nobody, you know, you look up online open mic, you couldn't find anything on Google because it didn't, like, nobody was doing it. Why would you do it? And then COVID happened. I'm like, well, I guess that wasn't a good name choice. But how do I come up with a name? So I wrote probably 10 pages front and back of ideas and
Oh,
then did a search and were those domains already taken?
okay.
And and I wanted it to be something that was positive. I didn't want it to be something that could be twisted and but you know, it's plausible. Like be plausible. It's a plausible idea. Um yeah, so that's how I came about it.
That's pretty cool. That is
Great.
pretty cool. I noticed you say we, so you have a team.
I do. I have a team and I've had a few people who are with me for like periods of time and stuff that have contributed to it. Um, but yeah, and a lot of it, depending on, you know, where we're at in the process and everything, people come on board and then slide off and then come back around again. So it's really, you know, having a startup is exciting and terrifying all at the same time.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yes, indeed. I'm definitely familiar with that.
Yeah.
So for all of the up and coming new comedians, what kind of adversities did you face when building your team?
You mean for the startup?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I think so it's really interesting to me. I think what I was most surprised at is a number of people who don't show up for an interview. Like
Yes.
that's the easy part. Just showing up is 80% of like success. It's like just show up. Um, um, I think in finding technical people on the coding side and stuff is finding, you know, just to say I'm a software developer, for someone to say they're a software developer, they're not all the same, right? Like some people know this language of code, this language, um, and I needed specific things. And I also needed people who could see the bigger picture and not be like, why would you do that? And a lot because people get confused with something they haven't seen before. And plausible there's familiarity of things that already exist, but having the package that we created didn't already exist. And so getting why I'm doing that, because well, people are like, well, you could just do it this way. I'm like, well, then it's YouTube, like that already exists. And you could do it this way. And I'm like, but that doesn't solve the problem. And I'm trying to solve a specific set of problems for a group of people. And they're like, well, that's very niche. And so I would say to that, like, is comedy really that niche? I mean, because when you look at the information, like live streaming is super popular, right? And especially since 5G, but that is growing to huge industry. And the second most popular genre live streamed is comedy. And it's only second to breaking news,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
Like,
I don't know how many people have you met that are like, I don't like comedy. Sure, psycho. You know,
feel like when people say I don't like comedy, they're basically saying I don't like to laugh. I don't like being happy because there's humor in a lot of things. In a
yeah.
lot of things. That practically almost every aspect of your life can be transformed into some form of humor. And I mean, I know people have their picks and they have their ways of being humorous, but if you can tell a little corny joke and you find that to be the most funniest thing you've ever heard, then guess what? You still like humor in some shape, form, or fashion.
It's true. I actually someone was like told me once they don't like music. I'm like, I don't I'm gonna go over in this side of the room and talk to people. Like, who doesn't like music or comedy? You know? This is, you know, I draw the line.
Exactly. Like, hey, I'm
That's
not sure I want to be talking to you. You need to go find yourself.
right? Like, yeah. They're like, I don't like comedy. I'm like, okay. I don't know what to say after that. Like, I hurt my heart. Um, so yeah, I guess that's a weird thing. It's just finding people who can see the bigger vision of it and believing things are possible. Like not people, and I'm a huge fan. I love my team. I love the team I've been working with. They've been incredible, and I'm so grateful for them every day because they're great at problem solving, seeing like, well, if not this, what about this? You know, other ways of doing it and not just taking the easy route. And I mean, that's what entrepreneurship is. It's not necessarily taking the easy path. I mean,
can't,
sometimes, but
we can't focus on the easy route because there's too many details.
it's so true. It's like, well, life is hard. Yes, it is. It's very hard. You know, that's what makes it good.
If someone comes along and say, "Life is what you make
Yeah.
it."
Yes, and you know, it doesn't have to be hard all of the time, but there is something like compelling about a good challenge, something that grows us as humans,
Yeah,
something that gives us good valuable lessons, something that we can learn from and chew on. Like I just think there's value in that. I also think there's value to easy. Like there are times and places where we need that,
yeah.
but if we're choosing the path of entrepreneurship, I think the expectations are there will be challenges.
Indeed, yes, indeed. So I got a good one for you.
Okay.
So, in everything that you're doing as a comedian, entrepreneur, and plausible, pick characteristics from each one of them that are a part of you and tell us where those parts came from.
Oh, okay. So the first thing that popped in my mind when you're asking this is like resilient, persistent, um, sense of humor, and I think it's applicable to general life, entrepreneurship, and comedy because the whole thing about acting, like going to New York and doing any sort of acting that I was doing or improv and of course stand up, um, you know, I got no's. I got 99% no's all the time, but that was my job. Like as an actor, that's what we do. We audition, we audition. Our job is auditioning. And if we get a call back, that's yay, celebration. But if we booked a job, that's like a vacation. That's the easy part. It's doing all the other stuff. That's a hard part. And that's 99% of it. And I think for entrepreneurship, a lot of, the success comes, but that it's a smaller, eventually it flips and it becomes a bigger part of it. But there's a lot of no's with entrepreneurship. There's a lot of doors shut. There's a lot of pivoting, a lot of, trying to figure things out. I see that in writing jokes, the same thing. Like it's an ongoing process. It's rarely a good joke the first time I say it, maybe a good idea. Often not even that, but one out of so many jokes will work. And I think in entrepreneurship, like one out of every so many good ideas works. And then how you implement it. And it's just both, I think are art in an odd way, but both of them, I think, are faced with a lot of no's, a lot of challenges, a lot of failures. Like, my best jokes come from my worst life experiences, to be honest with you, right? Tragedy plus time equals comedy. That's why sometimes we're like, oh, too soon? Yeah, maybe. But that's where they come from. So I think it's not like how many failures we have, but how many times we get back up and try again.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. 'Cause you're not a true entrepreneur if you haven't fallen down and got back. You're not a true entrepreneur. You're more like one of those people. Okay, I tried that. That's not going to work for me. Let me keep going.
Yeah. Yep. It's like, get out of my way. I just got to find the thing that works here. Yeah. Absolutely. And I admit, like, it's not all fun. Like there are hard days. There are definitely tough days. And same with comedy, like I can laugh about those times, but at the time we're like, I'm sure I felt like that's 20 some years ago. And now I'm like, ha ha ha, wasn't that hilarious? But probably if it were like the day after, I might not think so.
The day after you got the tissue.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, you got to heal those wounds and,
Yes, yes, indeed. That's what
yeah.
helps you grow. It
Yep.
definitely helps you grow.
Yeah.
So if you can take yourself and split yourself up into two two time frames, who are you now versus who you were, let's say approximately 20 years ago?
Ooh, well, I'm definitely older. Definitely older. Uh, I'm not in such good shape anymore. I'm more shaped like an IKEA chair than I am anything else. 'Cause thank you, COVID and old age. This is okay. There's a couple of things. So one is I'm definitely a better student later in life because I think a lot of that honestly comes from life experience and be able to take what I learn in school and put it into actual context of real life experience. And I saw a lot of my younger counterparts in my cohort at school who maybe never have held a job before struggle with that. And I was like, and I was that person, you know, 30 years ago in school. I didn't, I had jobs and actually I had more job experience than some of the people I met, but because I started working at 13. But there's a difference. There's a maturity that comes with that too. And I at the time in my 20s, I probably thought I was a great student, but looking back, I probably would have hated me. I would have been like, you ding-a-ling, what are you doing? Um, but I think the younger me, looking back, I took a lot of risk. Um, and maybe a lot of other people can relate to this. Like when we're younger, we're kind of thinking like we're immortal, like those things won't happen to us. And also we don't think of those things because we're young and kind of dumb, And that's what I was. I was like, what? Uh, I was the first girl in my dad's family, I think, to graduate high school, and to go to college was a significant deal because I had never planned on it. because I didn't see people in my family doing that, and I didn't know what a credit hour was. And so I didn't know anything about college. I didn't know anything. And this is back in the day before internet. And I had to like go pick up a catalog of what the classes were and figure it out, and you had to call on the phone, like, what is a credit hour? And they're trying to explain it. And I'm in tears. And my dad's like, I can't help you. I don't know what this means, Um, and so, and then going for a couple of semesters, and my parents are like, "Whoa, you're actually smart." Like you're doing this. Like, do you want to continue? And then how do we make that happen? What can we afford? Because I couldn't afford to go in Illinois. I couldn't go in to afford to go to continue school in Illinois at a big university because it was just too expensive. And even though I was an in-state resident, that was just bananas. And the only reason I got to go to University of Nevada, Las Vegas is my brother happened to join the military and was stationed out there. And he's like, I'll drive over to the school and pick up a catalog and throw it in the mail. And it was because it was really inexpensive. And that's how I picked my school. But they're known for first generation college students. So when I think back, like my willingness as a young person to go and do things that I wouldn't have known anything about. I think about that. I also took a lot of risk, like, moving to Vegas at a young age. And, also what were my parents thinking? Like, let's send her there. But, I took other risks. Like I got married really young and then I got divorced and I got married really young again, like a couple years later. Like it was what I did in my 20s, Um, and then yeah. And it's like, yeah, I was saying yes to so many things, Um, I just, I just thought I dreamed big. I believed in so much. I thought so many things were possible. And, some were, some weren't, obviously. And, you know, I don't know. I just took a lot of chances. And I'd like to say that I do that now, but I'm a little bit more thoughtful in those decisions, Yeah.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. I can
Yeah.
totally relate to everything you just spoke on, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we didn't even touch on high school. That's a whole nother story. But there's a difference as we age. It's like, oh, how did that happen? How did I become my parents? Like what?
Pretty much, pretty much. How did I become my parents? Well, in my case, how did I become my grandparents? Because they say you were pretty wise for your age because you've spent a lot of time around a lot of elders. I didn't really spend a lot of time around people in my age group. It was always somebody that was old enough to be a parent.
Yeah, it makes it I think it really makes a huge difference. Like they say, I don't remember who they are, but there's a quote by somebody like, you're a reflection of the 5 people you spend most of your time with.
Yeah,
It says kind of who you are.
yes.
And I look back at who I was spending my time with versus now, and there's a big difference. You know? So yeah, that's a huge reflection on you, and you were surrounded by older people and, with a lot of life experience and guidance for you, which is really great.
It was sometimes it was challenging because I wondered, okay, do you really know what you're talking about? Or are you just trying to blow me off and make me not want to do certain things?
Yeah, right? And you okay, so I have a question for you. So now that you're older, when you talk to younger people, do you ever find yourself doing that same thing, like discouraging them from doing something because you've already had that experience and you're like, yeah, bad idea? Because although our intention is good, maybe we should be like, yeah, go do that, mess up, blow it all up, what's happening to your life right now?
Don't you know what I do? I actually educate them on the thing that they were talking about doing. And I feel like if I educate them, then I'm putting the ball back in their quarter giving them the opportunity to make the decision on whether they want to do it or not. Because they had all these bright ideas at first, not knowing anything about this particular event or these types of things that they want to do. And then you go and talk to someone who's been there, done that, had those experiences already. And you're surprised that this person is not telling you, oh, no, don't do that because I did that before and this happened to me and that happened to me. And I literally don't even tell them what happened to me. I give them the details on what they want to do, and I have them to either sit there and contemplate on it. And a lot of times they'll start asking me, well, what did you do? And how did you do it? So I
Wow,
actually
I'm impressed. That's
you're
you're actually a good human. Maybe this is why people don't send their young people over to talk to me. They're like, yeah, don't talk to her.
well, I truly thank you. That's a funny way of putting it.
People with kids are like, we're not gonna go visit Leanne this like for like 10 years. I'm like, I'll babysit. They never call me. They never call me.
Like, she's gonna have my children laughing too hard. No, thank you.
No, like I don't know what she's gonna talk to them about, but not gonna happen. Yeah.
I did the same thing to my children as I was raising my children. I had to be a single parent for 8 years. So I actually did the same thing to my children. Instead of discouraging them, I actually educated them and let them make the decision on their own. And they were like, for a long time, like, Dad, why do you tell us about certain things that we ask you about instead of just giving us a simple, yeah, go ahead and do it, or no, don't do that. I say, because when you go into things blind, a lot of times people make the decision to go ahead and do it anyway, and you have no direction. You don't even know where you're going. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what to expect. You don't even know whether you should be afraid or not afraid. Is this the right time to be brave, or is this the wrong time to be brave? You know nothing.
Yeah. You know, I really appreciate that because the fact that you're parenting in that manner is gives me so much hope. And it because I do think it like giving people a lot of times I see people no matter what age just wanting a fast answer. Just tell me what to do. Just tell me what the next step is instead of the skills to inform themselves, to educate themselves and make a decision of what their next step should be on their own. And that they're going to go so much farther in life because they have that skill set than people who are just constantly giving an answer and told what to do. I see
Yes.
it all the time. And that goes back to the question of like how I hired my team. I think that is a huge thing. And selecting people for a team is people who have problem solving skills and
Yes.
decision making skills. That
Yes.
is so valuable, so valuable.
Yes, it
So
is.
so hats off to you on doing that with your children because that is really smart.
Thank you, Miss Leanne.
Yeah.
I got it from I too went to college. I was one of the first of 11 children to actually go to college. I'm the second oldest, and I actually graduated from 5 colleges.
Are you kidding me?
No,
Five. That is so cool. That is so
I love education.
I do too, honestly. I really, 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 really do. I mean, it's not easy. It's not certainly not cheap, but given the right opportunity to do it, absolutely. It, I mean, I love that.
Yes, indeed. And I too couldn't afford to go to college in Chicago. I went to one college in Chicago for 1 year. And the beauty of it was that my high school counselor had set it up for me. So I didn't actually have to pay for it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That that is nice. You had some good people looking out for you. I so my first college that I went to was community college. It was College of Lake County. And I am so glad that that community colleges were available because it was really helpful in determining if I could do it. And also, um, apply my, this is back in the days where we had the typewriters and the carbon paper and everything. And I had to sit there and apply for scholarships, and if you make a mistake, you have to start all over again. Like I'm downstairs in a basement, like up
Yeah.
till wee hours of the morning making these deadlines. And I ended up getting a scholarship from a previous student at our high school who had passed away, and her parents put together a fund to help other kids that were like their daughter. And I was so grateful because there were so many that I had applied for, and I didn't meet this checkbox or that check, there's like all these different things. But just every bit of assistance that we can get of people encouraging us and guiding us down that path, like we don't forget that. Like that's like life changing, you know?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Jim Jones, and this was when I finally started getting really serious about doing poetry on stage and things of that nature. He told me, he said, man, he said, whatever you do, just go ahead and do it. Don't waste time. Go ahead and, make sure you know everything that you need to do about it. And he said, one of the key things is making sure that you, excuse me, that you are not the judge of your own work, because you will misjudge your work every time. Let your fans do it for you.
Ooh, I like this.
Yeah.
That's really smart. I haven't heard that before, and that is that's
Yeah.
a good takeaway.
I mean, think about it, because even when you're writing your comedy scripts, you're thinking like, man, this is gonna be like, this is gonna be funny, this is gonna be humorous, and I think people will really like this. So you already have this preconceived notion as to what your outcome is gonna be, and then it flops on you,
Mhm.
or it turns out to be better than what you think it is. But that's all a part of not allowing yourself to take yourself out of the equation. Because if
Yeah.
you take yourself out of the equation, then who are the people actually judging? Who are the people actually entertained by? Are they entertained by you? Or are they entertained by those bad thoughts that you had that you thought this wasn't going to work?
Yeah, it's so true. And well, okay, so you do poetry and you go to open mics and you work out your material, and that feedback, it is so important to the process. Like I cannot write in a vacuum. I
No.
cannot I cannot perform in a vacuum or by myself. It is all hands on deck, And
Yeah.
it's not just getting feedback once, it's a rinse and repeat over
Uh-huh.
and over again.
Yes.
Yeah.
I tell you,
So,
when I started, and I never thought that people would actually like it. I really didn't have no clue that people actually like it. And it's called 60 off the top. So what I do is I spit some poetry, literally from the top of my head, impromptu. No practicing, no getting ready for it, no any of that. Just spit that right off the top of my head. And I was really, really taken back by how many people actually like that. I really was taken back by that.
that's really nice to know, like, and what a great tool, right? To do that and to have people love it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I
And
was
I wonder if do you so okay, so now I'm curious, like when you do that, do you think it's because do you think anybody could do that? Or do you think it has a lot to do with the energy you put out when you do it and how you're using it and putting it out there?
I would honestly say both.
Okay.
And my energy when because I meditate literally every day. I meditate every day. So I'm already a calm person by nature. And I'm always looking for opportunities to protrude or share the positive energies that I'm always feeling. I'm always thinking about. I'm looking for ways to push that out there to other people. And I feel like when I'm doing my 60 off the top, because I'm not only just spitting the poetry, but I'm also putting emphasis on certain things. And oh, excuse me, I'm putting emphasis on certain things, and I'm not actually picking a particular topic to actually talk about. I just put a whole thing together just instantaneously.
Nice. I like that. I like that.
Yeah,
60 off the top.
and you can
I
find
yeah.
you can find it on my Spotify. It's on my iHeartRadio. You can find it on my YouTube and also on my TikTok now. At first, it wasn't on my TikTok, but I decided to incorporate it on my TikTok.
Great idea. I'm gonna check that out for sure.
Thank you. Yeah,
Definitely.
I look forward to these things. You are one of, I think it's two. You're either the second or the third person that's ever asked me questions during the podcast. I like that.
Well,
I like.
you're a very interesting host, like you get it. Well, you're a performer, so it's super relatable.
Yes, yes, indeed. And I love talking to people of all, different ethnicities and people with different backgrounds. I mean, comedy, people that deal with financial, some people, when I first started, it was really amazing. Some of the people I talked to, they were cancer survivors or actually cancer patients, and a couple of them had actually lost a few people to that. And it was like my inspiration to give them some sort of consoling. It
Yeah.
just instantly, and I really, really love the feedback that they gave me and the expressions on their face, seeing them just light up for that moment. That was a takeaway for me. I was just extremely, extremely happy for that. So I love
Wow.
things happen to people.
That's so rewarding. Is it? Yeah, it means it gives it so much meaning that you're touching somebody or you're having an impact. I love it. And it's and to me, poetry is similar to music. You
Yes,
know?
yes.
And
Actually,
especially as you deliver it because there's a cadence and a rhythm to it that it's not just the words, it's the emphasis and the tone and you create a whole experience with it.
yes, and I actually have some with music behind it.
Nice. I love I do. I really do. And I'm so blown away. I used to go to this mic in Astoria, Queens when I was in New York, and it was always packed. It was a really cool mic where it was expensive. It was like $10 for 10 minutes. But they had these really cool people, and one of them in particular was a poet. And I absolutely looked forward to hearing him every time because he would usually close it out. And I was just like, how does he do that? Because when we see the read poetry, right? It's one thing, but when it's brought off paper and it's brought to life and someone uh uh I'll say does poetry, right? In a setting like this, it's musical. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, I would totally destroy that whole poem if I were to get up there and do it for the first time without it would be like me trying to karaoke. It would be painful at best. And so I have such an appreciation because it's not an easy thing to do. It's just not. I mean, there's a lot of effort and practice and skill that goes into it.
Yes,
I've
indeed.
tried. It is hard.
I've been doing this since I was a little boy. My eighth grade teacher scared the heck out of me because I wrote a poem in eighth grade. We were having this thing where we were supposed to be writing poetry in classroom, and I wrote a poem and I recited that poem in the classroom, and he took that poem and held on to it. He was like, "Okay." In the end, the next day we were having an assembly. So he gets on the stage and we have a poet that's actually going to be performing a new poem that he just wrote yesterday. And I'm just looking around like, okay, who's going to be doing this poem? Next thing you know, he says my name. I was like, I'm like, no, not me. He said, come on, you can do it. You can do it. Come on. And then he's like everybody's favorite teacher. So they was like, come on. They was like, yeah, hello, come on, yeah, hello, yeah. So I get on stage, nervous as heck, afraid. He talks to me in the back before we even get on the stage. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try it. I get out there, perform that poem, and got a standing ovation. And that was the first standing ovation I had ever gotten in my life. Super
Wow.
excited and scared all at once.
Wow. That's huge. That is really huge. Like, I don't, you've been surrounded by some really good people looking out for you. Like,
it was great.
like that recognize you, like, like, let's make this happen. Let's open some doors. Like, that's really cool.
It was scary though. That was super scary. And it's crazy because I can still remember how much fear I had. And that was like in sixth grade.
That's pretty big. Like in sixth grade to get up in front of everybody at the assembly. If they called my name in sixth grade to get up in front of the assembly, I'm like, what are they going to do to me? Like, it wasn't for anything. Like in junior high, my friends locked me out of the school, and those are my friends. So,
Tell your friends, hey, that's not nice.
I know I'm still friends with her today. What is wrong with me? But yeah, so that's a big deal, and that they cheered you on,
But it was still scary though. It's like I can really relate to a lot of people who are first timers, especially doing poetry. My daughter, oh my goodness, she performed for the mayor of Harvey, and it was in a church, and they had everything all set up, and she was super nervous. I had to talk to her, and I explained to her that yeah, dad went through the same thing. I went through the same thing. So I understand where you going. I say, but don't think about the people, think about the message.
Yeah.
And she was like, the message? I was like, yeah. So your poem has a message. Everything that you're going to say in this poem is something that people need to hear. And she was like, yeah. And I say, but what does it mean to you? Because you're the most important person first. Everybody else is second. And she explained to me what it meant to her. I said, so tell me how many people need to hear that. She said, everybody. I said, well, here's your start now. And she was like, that makes a lot of sense, Dad. That makes a lot of sense. She said, I'm
Yeah.
still nervous a little bit, but not as nervous as I was. But I think I can do it. And she did it. And the outcome was beautiful.
Well done. Well done. That's really though a great outlook for her, a good perspective, because that's true. And that can be applied to so many things. Like I think about that even, in comedy. I have a set to do. I have a story to tell. I have, these jokes are my babies, essentially. I have to put them out into the world. Like kids, some are better than others, but I got to put them out there into the world, you
And
know?
comedy
Yeah,
has messages too. It's a
it
beautiful
does.
thing. It may be funny, but it still has a message. Still
It
has a
really does. And it's, and it's, and that what I love about art, and especially in comedy is that, um, it's provocative. It's meant to be thought provoking. It's
yes.
also a place for, we laugh at things that bring us discomfort.
Uh-huh.
It's an opportunity to talk about the hard things
Yes.
and
Yes.
all be uncomfortable. And people we have a natural reaction sometimes to laugh at uncomfortable situations or in inappropriate times because we're like, what do we do with this? And it's kind of it's necessary. It's another way of communicating with
Yes.
people and sharing perspective, sharing our points of view, sharing different life experiences from different angles. And it is important. And so if it's silly, but I think that's an important part of life that we need too. We need the freedom to be silly and not so serious at
Yeah.
times as well.
And
So,
therapeutic. It could be therapeutic.
yeah,
It could be therapeutic because just think about it. If a person is down and out, they're angry, they're upset, they're sad, and someone does or says something funny, and they think about that for a second, and they just be like, "Why are you making me laugh right now?" And I'm supposed to be sad, But
yeah,
just
it's
think of how many neurons that are pulsating through their body and taking away some of that pain.
it's very true. I think of times when people have passed away or family members, and I spent time with other family members, and you know, and especially with kids, they don't fully grasp what's going on. They know it's like, I'm supposed to be sad, but then take them out for the day away from everything, laughing so hard, we have tears coming down our face until we're brought back to the reality of things. And it's like, it's okay that you spent an hour laughing and having fun. It's okay that you still have these other emotions, and okay to come back to the grieving and the sadness and other, you don't have to have all the guilt associated with it, because these things will come and they will go, and they will happen in their own time. So yeah. And I don't know if you've experienced this going to mics and things, but running a mic for 7.5 or so years in New York, there were times where comedians would come in and, they're like, I had, this I was going to work on, but instead I need to talk about this.
Uh,
And the whole room would be crying.
yes.
And we'd have that. And I would, as a host, I'm like, where is this going? But it's like, I learned that you just have to trust the process, because at the end of the night, inevitably everybody would come up and surround that person and be like, I'm so glad you talked about that. I can relate. And and it became a bonding moment, because it takes things beneath the surface
Yes.
and let them kind of take place. And I just love seeing that on stage unfold in real time.
Yes, indeed. There's nothing like it. It's nothing like it. And that's the beauty of so many different types of arts. They can be therapeutic. They can be, you know, um, eye-opening. They can be things that you really need at the moment. And they can also be things that you didn't know you need at the moment. It's just so many doors that these different arts actually open up. And if people would actually take the time to understand that art is here and it's serving its purpose,
Yeah.
and everybody in the world are reaping the benefits of these different types of art, regardless of what type of art you're into. If you're in the art of comedy,
Yeah.
people reaping benefits from it. If you're in the art of poetry, they're reaping benefits. If you're drawing, because that's another thing that I do, people are reaping the benefits from that. If you're doing music, people are reaping the benefits from that. People are taken back into this place in their frontal lobe that helps them to start shifting certain things around and making sense out of it, or just remembering something that happened in their past, or that thought, that beautiful thought that maybe one day I'll get there.
It's true. And it's any art is a form of expression and communication in one way or another. And no matter what, at the end of it, I hope that people walk away feeling something.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes,
Hope you
indeed.
walk away and you feel something, whatever that may be. Yeah.
So, this has been awesome. Please, by all means, Miss Leanne, take us out with something funny or something motivational or whatever floats your boat. Floats your boat. Let us have it because everybody needs to hear you.
Yeah. So a little something funny. I'll leave you with a thought and maybe an assignment if you're up to the challenge of trying to write a joke of your own, right? And one of the techniques that I have are taking two unrelated things and tying them together, finding out how are they alike. So for instance, one day I sat and I wanted to write a joke that maybe wasn't like from my own life experience, but I thought relationships, shoes. Like how what can I do with that? Two words seemingly unrelated. And after a couple hours I came up with, now mind you, this took, a couple of hours or so and then working it out. Uh Flip-flops are what I consider the booty call of shoes because they're easy, they're convenient, but they're never there for you in the long run. So So you can kind of see if you write that down and deconstruct it, like how I got there, and see if you can take two seemingly unrelated things and put together a joke. But you know, yeah, I highly recommend if there's something out there you've always wanted to do in the arts, whether it's poetry or comedy or drawing or music, like it's never too late to start. I've started my life over so many times. And somehow I ended up here. But 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 there's no mistakes. Like it all takes you on another path and it opens up doors in ways that we never thought it would. And just because you experiment and give yourself the opportunity and permission to try something new doesn't mean you have to go all in and make it a career. You can just enjoy it, for what it is. Show up to an open mic, put your name in the on the list or in the hat and see what comes of it. Give yourself permission to fail because from my biggest failures in life came some of my best and most favorite experiences.
Yes,
So
indeed. Yes, indeed. That's that growth spurt. That's that growth spurt in life. Not the physical human growth spurt. That's that mental lifelong growth spurt is having those trials and those tribulations to teach you things about your life that you didn't think were possible.
absolutely. After the storm, new life comes from it and things bloom. So just know if you weather the storm, the grass turns greener, flowers come in full bloom, and it is then spring.
And
So
beautiful. It's music, it's harmonic, it's funny, it's some of everything.
absolutely, it sure is. And find someone to share it with.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
Like we are sharing it here, which I love this conversation. You are
Yes.
so fun to talk to and you've had such an interesting journey on your own. Like I want to know more. So
I'm willing to share. No problem. I'm willing to share. So maybe you catch me on one of my lives when I'm doing a live because I share so many things on my live. It's a beautiful thing. It's fun, and I really like the crowds that I'm starting to get nowadays because a lot of people are coming from overseas. A lot of people are coming from Africa. A lot of people are coming from the UK. So there's the audience is really opening up to my lives now. So I'm happy to actually be able to speak to people from various places. I love it.
great. Well, I'm going to check that out and I'm going to do the 60 off the top.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Please share whatever your thoughts are, whatever positive, negative, doesn't matter to me because I learn from either way.
Thank you.
So please let everybody know where we can actually find you, Miss Leanne, because we need to find you. You cannot
Yeah.
hide. cannot hide from us. We need to find you and listen to you and get some laughs.
Yeah, because I don't want to be like, where's Waldo? So you can find me at plausible.com. And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at plausible is the handle with 2 Z's. And yeah, sign in, check out some comedy, sign up, do some comedy. We've got open mic shows, all kinds of things.
And I'm
Yeah.
following you on all of your social media, so be on the lookout.
Hey, hey, I'm following you right back.
Most definitely. Everybody, you all have to give a wonderful round of applause to Miss Leanne because, oh my goodness, you are definitely an awesome guest, awesome woman. Your path definitely looks promising, and I am definitely hoping to get an opportunity to be a part of that journey that you're going on, because you're definitely going on a journey that's worthwhile, and I love it.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me here. This has been really fun.
Thank you, and I greatly appreciate it. It's been fun. I love it. Thank you so much, Miss Leanne. Peace and blessings. We're out of here.